Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lowdown Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Sunday evening-ish by you guys. It is a Sunday, which means that you guys get to control a good chunk of this show. I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about off the top, and then I will dive into all of the questions that we got over the weekend. The iTunes mailbag is blowing up. The Discord mailbag is blowing up. I sent out a tweet today, and there is no chance I'm going to be able to get to all of those. So that does serve as a reminder that if you are going to, or if you do want a topic covered on the show, there's a priority list here, right? So 5-star iTunes reviews is the best way to get your questions answered on the show for free. There are super comments that come in, and I get to all of those as they come in as well. Then if I ask you for questions on Twitter and you send me a question, but show me that you're currently subscribed to the show on YouTube, then I will get to those as well. And then we have the Discord mailbag, which I would say ranks right there with the confirmed YouTube follower questions that come in on Twitter as well. But as we get later into the season, these things are going to be harder to get to all of them. So I would say those top two priorities, the iTunes mailbag and the super comments, those are generally going to be the safest ways to guarantee that whatever topic you want covered on the show gets addressed. Perfect segue. Please do hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, and please do hit that like button here on YouTube. So I've seen those creep up a little bit. That does help the show as well. If you again, if you're listening to this in the morning via podcast form or audio form, please hit subscribe everywhere it is that you get your podcasts, preferably on iTunes. And then also, now this isn't really going to affect those of you who are listening in the form of an iTunes, on iTunes or wherever it is that you could get your podcast, again, preferably on Odyssey. But if you guys are watching live on Twitter, and if you previously subscribed to the Silver Screen and Roll feed, but then, for whatever reason, started tuning in on YouTube or whatever, it does really help the show if you unsubscribe and then subscribe again, because of the way that algorithms work, because of when I obviously when we moved from Silver Screen to Blue Wire and then from Blue Wire to Odyssey, essentially what they do is, like, if you have previously held subscribers and then you move your RSS feed somewhere, that only starts counting the new subscribers when you get to a new place, not your previous subscribers or that old subscriber base. So that stuff, I wish it didn't matter as much as it does, but it does matter. And here we are. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive on into the first couple of topics. I wanted to talk about the Denver Nuggets beating the absolute shit out of the Lakers and some potential harsh realities that come out of that game. And then I also want to talk about, like, the state of the Lakers, right? They won however many it was in a row, 6 or 7, and then dropped 2 in a row and now sit at 10-7, the same exact record that they sat at last year at the 17 game point. And I want to talk a little bit about, like, who these Lakers are and get your thoughts on it too. Like, this is a back and forth conversation that I look forward to having every time I hop here on the show. So without any further ado, let's talk about that Nuggets loss and the harsh realities that came about from it. So obviously the Nuggets beat the absolute crap out of the Lakers on Saturday night. Tough night for your boy, because the Nuggets beat the crap out of the Lakers, and then I stayed up until like 1 something in the morning to watch the USC Trojans beat my UCLA Bruins, which tough night, tough sports night. Fortunately, the Vikings, they tried to give it away, but they were able to give me a win here this morning or today against the Chicago Bears, and my fantasy team looks like it's going to win this week. So that's good news for my own like sports sanity. But that Nuggets game was interesting throughout all of it, right? The Lakers at one point had a nice little lead. They had a good, comfortable lead against the Nuggets. Things turned quickly, and the Nuggets just, I think they went on like a 50 something to 17 run against the Lakers and wind up winning by a zillion. The as the even when the Lakers had that lead, it's not that I would call it fool's gold, but I was a little nervous because the Lakers were like just kind of scoring with the Nuggets, and the Nuggets were missing, I thought, some makeable shots. I didn't really see anything that the Lakers were doing defensively that would have made me nervous if I was a Nuggets fan or playing for the Nuggets. And I was just kind of nervous. I told Jen, because we had the Lakers game on the wall, and then we had the USC UCLA game on the TV. And then, when during like halftime of the SC game, we switched over to the Laker game onto the TV. And I was telling Jen, I was like, yeah, if Denver starts getting stops, I don't know if the Lakers are going to handle that very well. And then the Nuggets started getting a couple of stops. I thought Anthony Davis played really poorly in that game. Probably his worst game as a Laker this season. I thought LeBron was kind of quiet there. I think Austin continues to struggle against bigger guards who have that athleticism advantage over him. Dalton Connect, it was really clear that the Nuggets did not want to get him going at all. And then on top of that, he didn't start. So kind of a weird aspect there. Rui came back into the lineup, but you could, if you would have told me he didn't play in that game, I think I probably would have believed you. Cam Reddish was really bad in that one too. And for the Nuggets, right, like they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. He came back and took it to Anthony Davis, and he took it to anybody who was standing anywhere close to him. Also thought defensively, he gave AD a bunch of problems. And it got to the point where AD like started the game attacking the paint a little bit, still would get into the paint and do like floaters or try to sneak the ball around Jokic, because Jokic was playing really physically with him, and he didn't seem to enjoy that very much. But you did, eventually over the course of the game, it went from, well, at least I'll get into the paint, to I'll just shoot this mid-range jumper, or I'll just shoot this three-pointer. And he just gave up chunk of territory after chunk of territory after chunk of territory to Jokic. And I thought that really kind of set the tone of that we saw from the rest of the Lakers, where it just got ugly. It got ugly quickly. LeBron was not really a factor in that one either. And that was even with Aaron Gordon not playing. So just a bad game there from the Lakers. And again, that followed that horrendous loss to the Orlando Magic. And now they have lost 2 in a row after winning 6 or 7 in a row. And it, like, I don't know, I've thought about it all weekend, and I kind of think this is just who the Lakers are. They aren't the team that won 6 or 7 in a row. They aren't the team that opened the season 3-0. But I also think that they aren't the team that went 0-2 in these games here. I don't think all of the stuff about like, well, they can't beat good teams is true either. I think they're a mediocre team that will probably finish a little above 500 for the season. And then it just kind of depends on where other teams sit when the Lakers do that, or if they're able to like win an extra game here and there over the course of the season. But it's really clear that the Nuggets absolutely have the Lakers number. It's really clear that the Lakers don't have very much confidence going against the Nuggets, almost organizationally here. And it's really, really clear that the Lakers need more talent on this roster. You look at let's just go position by position. Okay. At center, you have like a top, I would say 2 or 3 player at the center position in Anthony Davis. Unfortunately, against the Nuggets, they have the best center in the NBA. And, that guy tends to really outplay Anthony Davis in ways that actually impact winning. And when your best player or your second best player gets thoroughly outplayed by the other team's player at that same position, that's really difficult to come back from. But beyond AD, currently, the Lakers' only other center on the roster is a two-way in Christian Coloco. And it's really clear that JJ Redick doesn't really trust him. And we haven't gotten very much, if any, Coloco in AD minutes. I would have loved to seen that front court go up against Jokic here in that one, so that, I know that Coloco gives up roughly a zillion pounds to Nikola Jokic, but you would have Anthony Davis operating as the weak side defender there. And maybe that extra length collectively it's at least a different pitch that you could throw to Jokic. And I was texting with some people over the weekend, and especially after that game. And the point that I just keep coming back to with Jokic specifically is he is one of the smartest players I have ever seen play, right? He's on that tier, I think, with LeBron in that regard. And when you have a player who is that smart, the last thing that you could possibly do with him is give him the same look over and over and over again, because even if it worked initially, you're like, he's going to figure it out eventually. And so like, the Rui thing comes to mind, where Rui guarded him and it worked okay for a little bit. But then over the course of the series, it was really clear that wasn't going to work going forward. And essentially what Jokic has been able to do, or what the Lakers have opened themselves up to with Jokic, and this is why, frankly, like, this is the top reason that the Nuggets own the Lakers right now, is because they have shown Jokic basically the same roster and the same approach for like 2.5 years. Right? They showed it to him in the Western Conference Finals, and then they showed it to him over the course of the next season, and then they showed it to him, basically the same roster in the postseason the next year, and then now it's basically the same roster as last year. Jokic has figured this group out. He just understands how to beat the LeBron AD Lakers when they don't have a two-way wing, when they don't have a hyper athletic point guard who really makes him work on the perimeter, when they don't have a bigger center who can actually muscle and try to, bang bodies with pause. I know, but they don't have a center who, like a Jonas or a Drummond or somebody like that. I know people are saying Dwight now, but like, they don't have that kind of a center who gives Jokic, like, he feels at all on the interior. And when you basically give Jokic the same roster for 2.5 seasons, of course he understands how to beat them. He's known how to beat them going back to the Western Conference Finals. Like, he figured that group out. And then they keep showing him the same freaking group. Of course it's going the way that it's going. And so anyway, like, as far as like the Lakers Nuggets matchup specifically, until we see any meaningful change or improvement to this roster, Jokic is going to continue to have their number because he knows exactly how to beat them. And then on a more macro sense, the Lakers need a two-way wing. Rui is good offensively, sucks defensively. Vando is good defensively, sucks offensively. Cam can be good sometimes defensively and is always bad offensively. And that's it. Those are your small forwards. Those are your like 6'8", 6'7" to 6'8" guys who are athletic and are the most important role players on modern rosters. That's the extent of that position for the Lakers. So until they improve there, and then, you look at I said we were going to go position by position. So we talked about Anthony Davis. We talked about the centers and the backup centers specifically, right? Like, Christian Wood isn't really going to bang with Jokic, and Jackson Hayes is too small to do that too. So that's an issue. And then, at your power forward spot, you have LeBron, who's obviously really, really good. But the ways that LeBron has advantages over these other teams, he doesn't have them against the Nuggets, because whether it's Aaron Gordon down there or whoever else is guarding LeBron, that he also has Jokic there gumming up the middle of the paint, because he's such a small defensive presence too, that like LeBron doesn't have that interior advantage that he would have against any of these other teams. So that's like when you basically have your two top advantages, and those become negligible advantages, and now the onus falls to a supporting group or a supporting cast that just doesn't have the ability to make up for a compromised LeBron or a compromised Anthony Davis. That's why you see the Denver Nuggets have beaten the Lakers 13 out of the 14, the last 14 times that those two teams have played. That's how you arrive there. That's all very straightforward stuff, right? We talked about the wings. Now let's talk about like the small forwards / twos. All right, so you're right now, I think we're probably going to be moving towards Dalton Connect starting probably pretty soon. And maybe Rui comes off of the bench. It just wasn't that great of a look. The Lakers weren't as overwhelming offensively as they needed to be for Dalton and Rui to play together again. They'll probably get more of a look, right? It took 8 games for JJ to start bringing D'Lo off of the bench. We'll probably get another like 8 to 10 games or so of Dalton and well, no, Dalton didn't start. Cam started. So maybe Dalton gets in there and starts instead of Cam, because Cam is really hurting the offense. So maybe that's what that looks like here for the next handful of games. But if I'm talking about a rookie as like your starting shooting guard here, and he isn't a good defender either, they have to work really hard to hide him defensively. And then your other shooting guards are like Max Christie, who has become actually good defensively, but hasn't been consistent offensively. You have D'Lo playing some two out there, but he seems to have completely lost all confidence in his shot. So, and that obviously really changes his ability to impact the game. You have Gabe Vincent who plays some two as well, but he's Gabe Vincent. And the only guy that I think can, maybe occasionally you'll have Austin playing the two, but for the most part, if he's in the game, he's at the one. And like, if that's your like your wing rotation right now is just not good enough. Dalton, Max, Vando, Cam, Rui. It's a collection of like just staunch mediocrity. And you need more than that from those positions, those 3-and-D positions that every really, really good team is really strong at. Like, you could go back basically over history, basically since LeBron got into the league, and there are outliers here and there, right? But basically, the team that gets the best wing play in the NBA Finals wins that series. The team that gets the best wing play in almost any series, that team normally, like vast majority of the time, wins that series. And the Lakers' wing play right now is just not good enough beyond LeBron. Like, and LeBron's 40. He doesn't have it every night. And the Lakers don't have enough right now to make up for like those nights that he doesn't necessarily have it, as he didn't against Denver on Saturday night. So, like, again, when you look at like where the Lakers currently stand, man, how I've seen a very popular take right now is, well, the Lakers were 10-7 again with Darvin as the head coach. Clearly, JJ wasn't the improvement that Ham needed, or that he needed to be. I've been telling you this idea that only the only improvement to the organization would be the head coach, and the expectation that a head coach, somebody who doesn't step onto the court to play basketball, would swing 5 games in the way that some people were talking about. That's idiotic. It's insane. It's a ridiculous take. And like, I know that Darvin was really, really bad last year, and the hope is that JJ would be, enough better, but His last couple games weren't great. He's a rookie coach. So, like, man, are you surprised that they sit at the exact same record 17 games into the season as they did last year? Fuck no, I'm not surprised. It's the same roster. Everybody's the same. The only difference in the rotation is Dalton Connect, who's a rookie. How can anybody be surprised? And yeah, like over the course of the season, they're going to go on some stretches where they win against lesser teams because you have LeBron and you have Anthony Davis. And then against better teams, they're probably going to struggle a little bit because LeBron and AD by themselves isn't enough to beat better teams. They need more from this supporting cast, and they aren't currently getting it. And here we are. It's going to be probably a 50-ish win team, maybe. And they'll probably sit in like that 7 to hopefully 8 spot, and you'll see what you're able to do in the play-in, and you'll see what you're able to do in the first round of the playoffs. And maybe you catch the right matchup, because that's essentially what the NBA playoffs have become. It is just about matchups at this point. And maybe like you go on a bit of a run and you surprise some people. And that's like the end. That's like the best case scenario right now for the Lakers. And it really sucks that the best case scenario for a team that has LeBron still playing the way that he does on most nights, and that has Anthony Davis, the best case scenario is like, yeah, maybe we'll get there and make some noise. No, man, you have 2 top 10 players in the NBA. If you have 2 top 10 players in the NBA, you're like best case scenario season has to be a championship. But can you honestly sit there and tell me that you think that this team, as currently constructed, could win a championship? Hell no. So, like, Rob, Jeannie, Kurt, Bus Bros, like, this front office, it needs to do its job, because this roster right now isn't good enough. Flat out. All right. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on into, we have a couple starred comments, and we do have these iTunes reviews down here. So I'll go ahead and get to the iTunes reviews first. Starting with on Monday, Viva Exceptionalism wrote, Anthony, I've loved your show since the Locked On days, and it just keeps getting better. Hope you get your wish to travel more to cover the team. Does Jen like jewelry? I'm trying to think of what to get Jen for her birthday, and I'm not sure quite yet. We'll figure that out. But it has to be really good so that I could, get out. And I don't think I'm going to make the game right before Thanksgiving, because we have Thanksgiving stuff to prep for. But I'm hoping to be able to get out to Dallas and get out to Houston for the games that the Lakers play out there. Fingers crossed. Anyway, have a couple of questions. One, when a player needs surgery, who picks the surgeon, the player or the team? If it's the team, I'd fire all of them. Slow or no recovery from Gabe, Vando and Wood at a minimum. Too coincidental for my taste. 2, what would you think of a D'Lo and JHS or Wood plus 2 number 2 picks or second round picks for DeAndre Hunter, and the Lakers getting back their number 1 pick from the AD trade? Atlanta does it because Hunter is at $21 million for 2 years after this season, and Risache is developing at that position, whereas J-Lo and JHS or Wood are all expiring contracts, so it's a money deal for the Hawks. For the Lakers, they can take on long-term money but gain a second two-way wing and get their pick back. Well, for one thing, the Lakers aren't getting that pick back. The first is not moving, especially in a salary dump. No team uses first-round capital to just dump salary. Now, I'll go back to the first question here. To my understanding, teams have doctors that they typically rely on, and then they work with the player to make sure that player is comfortable with that doctor, or if that player has somebody that they would rather work with, then that team would kind of vet that doctor or that surgeon, and you would work together on that. But that's why so many, like in baseball, everybody uses Dr. Neil Elatrache. Is like the guy that most people use. I think he's done some stuff in basketball too. So like it's basically who these teams have good relationships with, and then They'll tell the player, this is who, unless you have a problem with this guy, or this person, this is who you're gonna get the surgery from. And if the player has somebody that they would rather use, then they would work with the team to figure that out. But generally speaking, the team has first say, but it is the player's body, and they work with the player. Now, as far as the trade beyond that, like if you remove the number one pick from that equation, and you're turning D'Lo and JHS plus Wood into DeAndre Hunter, it's interesting. Hunter, when he's healthy, is that two-way wing. He's actually pretty good. Atlanta was like good with him in the lineup last year. The problem with Hunter, with DeAndre Hunter, is that he hasn't been able to stay healthy and doesn't appear like capable of remaining healthy. So it's the same kind of thing with like Rob Williams, right? Time Lord out there in Portland. It like if you could guarantee me that player was going to stay healthy, then I'd be all for going out and getting that guy. But if you're telling me that I would be essentially gambling on the Lakers training staff and medical department to make a player healthier than they were in a different organization, I just don't trust the Lakers organization to be able to take care of that. So I sucks, but the Lakers I don't think would be able to make that homecoming work with DeAndre Hunter. Lakers. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and play this thing because we changed subject. Next one, Lakers Fedora writes, "Hey Anthony, always appreciate you and the great work you do. Thank you very much. Feel like this season both the Lakers and the Lakers Lounge are going to outperform expectations. Hell yeah, we are. We already are. We're doing pretty good. At least the show is. A couple trade ideas for you that I think move the Lakers up a tier if they can pull off both. Gabe Vincent and 2 seconds for Jonas Valanciunas. And then the second trade is D'Lo, JHS, and Wood, and a first for Cam Johnson. Gives us some relief from being so close to the second apron. And would open up a couple roster spots so we could potentially elevate Quincy, then make another veteran minimum signing, perhaps Fultz or Lonnie. And it would give you a 9-man rotation of Austin, Cam Johnson, Vando, Braun with AD starting, and then a bench of Jonas, Connect, Rui, Max. That would be a 9-man rotation. I guess you would include Cam Reddish as like the 10th guy in there somewhere too. It's definitely an improvement to where compared to where the Lakers currently stand right now. I saw Jovan say that would maybe cost the Lakers a first or a heavily protected first for Jonas Valanciunas. I would be pretty surprised if that's what it would cost to get the guy. He has another year on his contract beyond this one. And is just not like the kind. He's at a stage of his career where he's not going to like get better next year either. So I don't think it would cost a whole first to get him. I think 2 seconds is probably about the right price there, as far as, getting him for Gabe and some stuff. And if that's the case, I think the Lakers would look to include like Maxwell Lewis in that trade, or like Cam Reddish in that trade, so that they could open up a roster spot and trim down their budget a little bit and give themselves a little bit more breathing room under the second apron. So that first trade I would probably tweak slightly, and then the second one, D'Lo, JHS, Wood, and a first for Cam Johnson. I could see that one. I could probably see Brooklyn looking for some extra second round capital too, because there's going to be a bit of a bidding war for Cam Johnson over the course of the season. But, in watching the Wings play so far this season, Cam hasn't been great. Dorian has been okay, mostly like fine. Kuz has kind of struggled for a lot of it. And in terms of like the players and like the way that they're kind of wired, I think Cam Johnson is the one that I am most intrigued by. Especially if you take into account what it would cost to get him, like Jeremy Grant, like I think is clearly the best of all of those players, but it would cost more to get him both contractually and draft capital wise. Dorian Finney-Smith would probably cost less than Cam Johnson, but I don't think he will be quite the net positive that Johnson would be. Kuz would probably cost about as much as Cam Johnson, but I'm concerned. I watched him play. I forget when it was. I think it was either over the weekend or Thursday or Friday, and was kind of blown away by some of the habits that he's formed in such a kind of down and out situation there in Washington defensively, and that makes me a little nervous. So, yeah, I think it'll be. I mean, just get ready for a lot of rumors surrounding those guys, and then that last point about opening up a roster spot and potentially going out and getting a Fultz or a Lonnie Walker. If I had my choice between the two, I love Lonnie. Like, obviously, big fan of the guy personally. He's been on the show. I'll never forget Lonnie Walker, the fourth. That was an incredible game. But the Lakers need Fultz's defense. And like if you could if Lonnie was coming over and was definitely going to defend, I would say, sure, yeah, bring Lonnie on over here. The Lakers, regardless, I think they need either of those two players because they need that, like they need an injection of athleticism into their guard rotation. I said online yesterday after the game that they don't have a guard who plays with force. And what I mean by that is like a lot of their guys, like they aren't athletically gifted enough to be forces of nature on a basketball court in the NBA. And if anything, they wind up getting kind of overwhelmed by the other team's athleticism and physicality at those guard spots. Jalen Suggs gave the Lakers real problems Friday or Thursday night. And then Russell Westbrook absolutely steamrolled the Lakers front guard rotation on Saturday night. And they need somebody to be able to step up to those kinds of athletes or be able to do that to other teams' defenses athletically. So I think I would prefer Fultz in that of the two. He's a much better defender than Lonnie is. And I think the Lakers need somebody who is more consistently impactful defensively than the guys that they currently have right now. If you're looking at like Gabe Vincent as your best point guard defensively, you aren't a very good defensive team rotation wise, right? And that's, I think, where the Lakers really need to improve. All right, the next one here comes from Cube Reese 12. Two trade option I liked that you haven't mentioned in a while is Wendell Carter Jr. and Bruce Brown. Any thoughts on these two? Carter is still eligible to be traded, even though he signed an extension right. Is the expiring of Brown not worth gutting the roster, i.e. trading D'Lo because of his high salary? I would flip D'Lo for Bruce Brown in a nanosecond even. Brown would immediately start. I know there's it's kind of popular to bring up Dante DiVincenzo right now. I think Minnesota is going to give that more time from what I'm hearing before they move him. But like that shooting guard who has some defensive, who competes defensively, is a plus athlete, is capable of knocking down shots and has some on-ball creative chops as well. Like those kinds of shooting guards is what the Lakers really, really need. So I'd be over the moon if the Lakers were able to turn D'Angelo Russell into Bruce Brown, depending on the additional draft capital necessary to get Brown. Wendell Carter Jr., I would have to look back into it as far as the kind of extension that he signed. If it was just if they just re-signed him, then he's eligible to be traded for in December. But if there is an extension, it depends on when he signed it. And so long as I think it's like 6 months passed between him signing that contract and the trade deadline, then you can trade for him eventually. And if so, I know that the Lakers tried to trade for him back in the summer. That was one of the names that they got far-ish down the line with trying to trade for Wendell Carter Jr., I was told. But and he's somebody who if he is ever draft or trade eligible, the Lakers would check back in on and go after. If they were able to get Wendell, it would change the identity of this team. You would wind up having, I think you would have to start Wendell and AD and close with Wendell and AD. And I think I'm all for it. I love, I love the way that he competes. He can space the floor a little bit from the 3-point range too. He can bang with some of the bigger bodies in the NBA. And, he and AD could basically take turns doing that or being the help side pterodactyls. They're both good in those capacities as well. Obviously, AD is a little bit better. But I would be thrilled if the Lakers could get, either Bruce Brown or Wendell Carter Jr. It's just, we need to get to at least December when after the Lakers have played 30 games to start really having some of these conversations. What I will say, I talked to Jovan about this when we covered that San Antonio game together. And I think he made a really good point in that Rob saying 30 games felt noteworthy. That's on the other side of the calendar year. Normally teams break seasons up into quadrants. They'll go 20 game, 20 game, 20 game, 20 game with obviously some change here and there. And in this case, Rob said 30, which I think was on purpose. So at the 30 game mark, that's when I think the Lakers will really start picking up those conversations, and we'll see what they're able to figure out at that time. But yeah, make no ands, ifs, or buts about it. Like, the Lakers need to improve this roster, the backup center spot, the wing spot. They need more athleticism on the perimeter. All things that I think, by the way, are well within reach in terms of the assets, given the assets that the Lakers are going to be working with, and given the kinds of players who are out there on the market. If the Lakers play their cards right here, they can make enough noise in the trade market. And by the way, I know they got obliterated by Denver, and I know that Denver just kind of owns them. But for one thing, if you improve the roster, and you tweak it enough that now Jokic is getting a different look, that it doesn't fully reset the math, but it changes the math a little bit. And then there's also the possibility that you avoid Denver in the postseason. There are teams that Denver doesn't match up well with. And if the Lakers get a little lucky and they get the right matchups and they make the proper adjustments to their roster, now all of a sudden, I actually think they would match up okay against Boston in a finals series. I actually think they if Boston somehow gets knocked out in the postseason before they make the finals, now the season is wide open. And I think they would match up. I know they got kind of steamrolled by the Cavs earlier this year, but I actually think that would be, in a playoff setting, would be a very different game and series over the course of that too. So it's just about giving yourself an opportunity here, right? And I think the Lakers, I trust them more against bad teams this year than I did last year. I think I trust them against good teams a little bit less than I did last year because the personnel currently available. But again, I think changes in personnel and coaching and all of that is fairly negligible at this point. So I could see the Lakers getting better against good teams, but you need to improve the roster. You just have to. All right. Final iTunes question. Crazy. We got 4 of them. Look at you guys go. A Gear 40 writes, "Hey, Anthony, appreciate all that you do. Appreciate you, bud. Do the Lakers use the excuse of player autonomy to cover up for their cheapness when it comes to the auxiliary/medical staff, or do they simply not value those positions? They have a top-ranked PT program in USC down the road, top-notch athletic trainers at USC and UCLA. As a dietitian, I saw that the Clippers recently hired an RD, registered dietitian, I'm guessing, to consult with them. I'm sure that's not a consideration of the Lakers. The Lakers should be offering industry-leading salaries and using the resources to around them to find industry-leading talent, not who has the most Insta followers/celebrity trainers, i.e. Gunnar Peterson. Thanks as always." Well, as far as the main point made there, completely agree. there is no reason for Jeannie Buss to not be reinvesting into the organization, though, like in a more like in a more impressive fashion, right? As an example, we have this partnership with Underdog, and it has now increased my budget. And I could just pocket the extra money. I could just, um, you know, buy an extra shirt, I guess. But like, no, instead, what I plan on doing, I reached out to some of my friends who have bigger YouTube, uh, channels and stuff like that. And I've been asking around, like, hey, is there a YouTube producer who would be willing to come in and do some work with me using this now expanded budget? And this is just how business works. When you have the opportunity to expand your budget, if you just pocket that money, or if you never do enough to keep up with the ways that other owners or other businesses are investing into their businesses, like you're going to get left behind. And you look at the way that the Lakers are currently run, and again, you compare it to the Dodgers, who the Dodgers do that. They have industry leading people up and down the organization at every position. And like, yeah, for a little while, you would say, well, look how well that's gone for the Dodgers in the postseason. They have as many championships over the last umpteen years as the Lakers do. Bravo. Now it's like, okay, they just won one without Shohei without Shohei pitching. And now they're immediately turning around, like they're talking about potentially adding a Blake Snell, or they're possibly adding like a Max Fried, or they're going to potentially add the Sasaki guy from Japan. Like, and they have these opportunities at these free agents, and they have these opportunities to fix some of these. Like Blake Trinan was on the scrap heap. He's like not a factor in baseball at all. The Dodgers went, found him, tried to see what they could do to keep him healthier, tried to see what they could do to fix like his delivery stuff and focus more on some different pitches and stuff. And he's right back to being the Cy Young, caliber pitcher that he was in Oakland only a couple years before the Dodgers went out and got him. And the Lakers, like, where is that kind of advantage that the Lakers are creating for themselves? Where is it? Does it exist? Not really, right? Like, it's just, all right, yeah, they have an inside route sometimes at some free agents, but they also have lost some 2-dog races for free agents. So is that really an advantage? Like, who like what path do they have to improvement that other teams don't, or that other teams don't do better? It's like, development and stuff like that. The Warriors are better at development. Look at like some of the steps forward that Kuminga has made, even while he and Steve Kerr have been fighting damn near openly for the first couple of years of his career. Look at what Pods has done. Look at how the Spurs get more out of their talent. Like, so the Lakers aren't better than everybody at developing talent. You could say, all right, well, they're better at scouting talent, but is that really all that important? Is your draft scouting department all that important if you don't develop said talent? Not really, right? So, like, this is what kind of drives me crazy, is that like the Lakers, they print money. They have the biggest TV deal in the sport. They have the biggest fan base in the sport that they can. I got an email a couple weeks ago, said that it costs a family of 4 more to go and see the Lakers play than any other team in the NBA. And your return for that is a mostly mediocre product, depending on when you go and see them play. Like, that's not great. We got to hold them to a higher standard. All right. Wow. We have a lot now of these it's 3. So that's good. All right. So, first, because we do have super comments, I get to play this bad boy. First comment here comes from Brandon Oming, who writes, "If Vando eventually comes back like Vando and Dalton Connect with AR, Bron, and AD, having D'Lo and Rui off the bench would be great and help. Also, Max is better than Gabe. Also, go Vikings! Yeah, look at us go 9-2. Could be a 10-win team next week. Although Arizona looks like pretty good. Well, they're losing right now to the Seattle Seahawks, so that's me. And the Vikings have them at home, so should win next week. But yeah, the that rotation, like after seeing the Dalton and Rui thing, and again, it's only one game. I think we're gonna get like a handful of games before. Well, we know we're gonna play, or the Lakers are gonna play a handful of games before we see Vando healthy again. So you have that, I guess, kind of going for you. But I do think we're probably gonna get like a decent sample size of Rui and Dalton playing together, and then maybe they'll split them back up and go to like Dalton and Cam together so that you have that balance of defensive ability on the court with like with the scoring punch off of the bench with Rui and D'Lo coming off of there. So I could see that's how I probably predict this going. But eventually, hopefully, if Vando is able to give it a go, I would love to see him and Dalton start next to each other, because he's just like a better version of Cam doing that. Who also like Vando, they were doing some really interesting stuff before Vando got hurt last year with screening and DHO stuff, that I think that JJ would go back to. And if they are able to do that, and Vando was able to impact the game more offensively than Cam was, while also being a better defender, that's how you get like the sizable upgrade to the starting group that to this point, like, has not been as overwhelming as you need a starting group to be when you have LeBron and AD out there at the starts of games. Oming continues, if JV, if Vando comes back, you can start with Connect with AR. Unfortunately, I think AR has reached the ceiling as a player. He's a 16 to 18 point guy. I don't think he'll ever be a 20-point scorer. The big thing with Austin that I do think we're probably going to have to start to come to grips with is that athleticism disadvantage. He looks really uncomfortable when teams have a point of attack defender who can hound him up and down the court. He looks okay sometimes when he just says, screw it, and goes at that defender and goes by and gets into the paint with that sprint dribble. But that's like really hard to balance that approach with also setting up the offense. And if your point guard isn't really setting up the offense, that, puts you in a tougher spot in terms of your on-court rhythm. And I think like last night when the Lakers offense really went to shit, like I think a big part of it was Denver's guards were really giving Austin issues and getting the Lakers into their sets. Not even just not on time, but like in terms of like at all, like there were times where he was like, here, LeBron, we got to run a different set because I couldn't get to the spot on the court. And if that's going to be the case with Austin, maybe the Lakers do have to rethink this Austin as the point guard thing. And maybe they do have to tweak their approach to there. I think it's still too early for my liking to arrive at that decision or arrive at that conclusion. But I don't necessarily hold it against the people who are concerned on that front. Jason JK Productions Kelly writes, looking at this roster, the only way it works is if Cam and Max are legit wings. JJ knows that he has to play them. Kuz is the perfect fit. I would be all aboard the Kuz thing if Kuz hadn't spent so much time in such a rotten organization and situation as he has in Washington. That once you learn to lose and you like learn acceptance of losing, as I think the Wizards have, that is damn near impossible to it's really hard to get that smell out of your car, right? It's like if you're buying a used car, my first question after like, hey, does this run and is there body damage is like, is the previous owner a smoker? Because you could nuke the interior of that car. You can go get it detailed, you can get it deep cleaned and all of that stuff. Um, but you're never like that smell is always gonna kind of be there. And when, I think the Washington Wizards and those organizations that have lost as much as they have, that is like your smoker previous owner. And um Kuz has done so much losing in Washington that I would be really, really nervous. And I watched him the other night and I was like really bummed because I was like, man, I was really hoping that I would be more impressed by this. And I just wasn't. And I'm concerned that used car now smells like cigarette smoke, which is, for my money, the ugliest smell in the world. All right. I am going to go into my Twitter mentions to maybe grab a couple more questions here. Um, but yeah, I it's yeah, we have 30 something questions here. So I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to get to all of them. Um, I am going to prioritize it first here, the ones that have the proof that they subscribe to the show. So, first here, Sebastian Berner writes, "Hi, Anthony. How many players do you think get traded if a trade happens? Ideally, D'Lo, Gabe, Bando, Wood, Hayes, and Koloko should not be in your rotation, but that's a lot of players to trade in one season. Yeah, you're not going to get rid of all of those guys. Koloko is a two-way guy, so he doesn't necessarily have to be in rotation anyway. I think the Lakers eventually going to trade one of Wood or Hayes, if not both, as they attempt to upgrade their backup center spot. A lot of noise with Jonas Valanciunas. It's just impossible to ignore how many people around the league just think that that's a damn near certainty at some point this year. And then let's see. Yeah, Gabe, D'Lo, one or both of those guys probably need to go. Tough thing with Gabe is that he has a contract that extends into next year too. And right now he's a negative value. And I don't think the Lakers want to include draft capital just to get off of Gabe. I don't think I don't think the Lakers think he has been that bad. So that makes it tricky there. But I do think like at least half of those players, well, do I think they will? I want at least half of those players gone. Do I think it happens? The Lakers probably need to do more winning to guarantee that it does. Um, let's see. Do we have any more? All right. Lakers Supply writes, when will JJ realize that starting Cam Reddish does far more harm than good? And then he points to Cam's net ratings here, and it's not pretty. It's tough, when opposing defenses know that they don't have to guard somebody in any capacity, right? Like Cam is even worse than Vando in that there is no like dribble handoff chops there. He's not a great screen setter. He just kind of floats around out there, and like his net rating numbers aren't great. And that's even with him shooting the ball fairly well to start the season. Tiny sample size. He's getting up like 3 shots a game, but he's still knocking down some of those. And the teams are just like, yeah, I don't care. Congratulations on making that shot. We just do not care. And it's really difficult for even an offense capable of being as elite as the Lakers offense is when like Austin and Dalton and Rui and LeBron and AD are out there. So like they need to upgrade that wing spot. It's just that simple. Until they do, this team has their ceiling is supremely limited. And I think their floor is higher than it was last year. I will give them that credit. But that ceiling needs to get a hell of a lot higher. As far as like when JJ is going to realize that, if we realize it, he realizes it. I think he's a lot more online than any of the Lakers' other coaches. All right. Yeah, that is going to do it here. I feel my voice going too, and Jen's waiting for me to cook dinner. So I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. 55 or so minutes into the show. We have a fun guest lined up for tomorrow. Somebody with a whole bunch of intel on what the Lakers are looking to do and when it might all take place. I'm not going to, I'll jinx it. Screw it. Jake Fisher is going to come on the show to talk about the trade market, to talk about, how things look in this new apron world in terms of the Lakers' ability to make a trade here. That'll be tomorrow's show. I think the Lakers play again soon after that. They play on Tuesday, I think. They play Phoenix on Tuesday. So then Raj will be in for that show on Tuesday. And until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Here's Avery. Oh, yeah, wait. Quick thing. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm not above begging. I'm perfectly fine begging you guys if I have to. So please hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. And until mañana, here is Avery.